From the morning paddle out when I check out the ocean,
2, 1.
to the National Hurricane Center sending up satellites, we're always trying to learn something new about the hurricane. But you know, sometimes the best way to learn is from the experience of others. So that's what we're going to do.
I lived at this address, and Irma was the reason why it's not there no more.
We're going to talk to our neighbors. We're going to listen to those who have experienced the hurricane, who have run from the hurricane.
We lucked out. We need to be prepared to leave if it happens again.
We, of course, can't prevent the storm, the big one, but we can prepare for it.
We did a complete rebuild. Took 11 months to rebuild our home.
And here's one thing for sure. It only takes one.
This is a First Coast News special presentation from the First Coast's most accurate weather team, certified by Weather Rate 4 years in a row. Hurricane Ready 2023. It only takes one. Sponsored by AC Designs Heating and Air Conditioning, your home comfort experts, and by Universal Roof and Contracting. Experience the difference.
There are several communities here on the First Coast that get flooded even during just a high tide, and it even gets worse during a tropical system. That was the case during Nicole here on Ken Knight Drive.
I think the wind is what pushed it so hard up against the building because it was coming so fast. I didn't understand where it was coming from until I came, and then the river was like angry.
This is Toy Martin, a resident of Ken Knight Drive, who has been through multiple storms in the neighborhood. She even lost her previous home during Irma.
I lived at this address, 4634, for a few years, and Irma was the reason why it's not there no more. The flood came through. That was the year that we had to use the canoes, and the flood damaged the house so bad where the lady was unable to rebuild. It's depressing. I mean, there's no other word to describe it. You know, every storm we have to worry about this. Every storm, whether it's gonna be a strong storm or a weak storm, is the river gonna come up? I'm gonna lose my stuff again. You know what I mean? You have years of stuff that you done built up for years, and to lose it because the house is so small, so we have to use the back porch as storage, and we lose a lot of stuff. So that's depressing. From the river to the house, inside the house.
Inside the house?
Yes.
So up in like your kitchen, your living room, everything?
No, it's the bedrooms get it. It's this room right
As
here.
she showed us around her home, it became very apparent from not only the high water lines on the side of the house, but also the layout of the home of how bad the flooding gets there.
About how high the water line in here, do you think?
It's about right here.
Yeah.
I had to elevate the bed because to save myself some money.
I mean,
that's how much water come in.
Wow. You come out your back door, you walk here, you stand here, you look out, and it's just like almost a lake or the ocean.
Right. You don't see none of that greenery. It'd be full.
Wow.
Yeah.
And during Nicole, that was your experience?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing your zone is important. Toy said there's a problem with people moving to the neighborhood not realizing it's a flood threat.
They're not being told the truth, especially if you're not from this area and not familiar with the conditions of the river. Mm-hmm. They don't know. So a lot of people move in here on blinded, especially in this area back here. And once they realize, once they go through that first storm, they out of here.
One of the biggest issues is the lack of assistance in the neighborhood ahead of the storm.
Since I've been here, I've never seen anybody come before the storm. You know, to kind of help prepare us. Like I said, we get our sandbags, and our help is after the storm when all the damage is already done. The water is already here, you know, and by the time we do get the sandbags down, the water is out inside the house. And we don't have nobody come through with the pumps.
During Nicole, did they bring evacuation buses at least, or was it?
No, but we did have some, I got private organizations that came through, you know, not necessarily with a bus, but they had SUVs or whatever to try to help us. All the help is after the storm. We need help preparing for the storm. We need our pumps to already be here. But I never seen nobody come through
Yeah.
with the pump, so our water just receive on its own.
All right. So kind of the community at least tries to help each other out here locally?
That's basically how we get through, is the love that we have for each other out here.
Her advice to the community?
As soon as you know of the hurricane is on its way, pack up your stuff and get out of here. That's the best thing that we could do, is to leave as soon as possible, because we're gonna get hit one way or the other, whether the storm weak or strong. We're gonna get hit. If it ain't nothing but with the water, we're gonna get hit. So the best thing for us to do is to, as soon as we know that the storm is on the way, is to get up and get out of here.
Ahead of every hurricane season, and even if you're just new to an area, you need to know your local hazards. Tropical threats are not just a coastal problem, but they can impact areas well inland, regardless of a storm's strength.
Check out Hurricane Central now at firstcoastnews.com and on the First Coast News app. Everything you need to know, anytime you need to know it.
Imagine the forecast calling for a major hurricane about to make landfall just a few hundred miles to our south. Would you stay or would you go? I spoke to one woman who had to make that decision for her family back in 1999 when Hurricane Floyd was approaching Florida.
What we're going to be doing is looking at a Category 4 evacuation.
The somewhat chaotic scene at this Merritt Island building supply store is being repeated all over Florida. At Patrick Air Force Base and the Kennedy Space Center, all aircraft are leaving for the safety of elsewhere. In Port Canaveral, the shrimp boat fleet, which stayed at anchor for Hurricane Dennis, is leaving for Hurricane Floyd.
I mean, it's a serious storm. We're in Category 4.
Sounds like maybe you're taking this one a little more seriously than some
This is the first one I've taken seriously.
We're in 1999, September, heading to the peak of the hurricane season. We have our sixth named storm, Floyd.
Yes.
And it is, at the time, one of the largest of its strength in the Atlantic Ocean. So what are your thoughts? What are you thinking leading up to this storm?
So we kind of had an idea in the back of our heads that we might have to do anything, but we were just very hopeful, fingers crossed, nothing will happen. Obviously, that did not work. We were living in a mobile home in a mobile home park basically right across the street from NAS Jacksonville. Rick had already gone off to work. He worked out at Blunt Island.
For hours now.
I've got the news on. I'm keeping an eye on the news, and they came across and said, low-lying areas and mobile homes are evacuated, get out. So we packed up bags, did what we could to storm-proof a mobile home that may or may not even be there when we were done. We packed up both vehicles and we hit the road trying to get out of Jacksonville. 4 people and 2 pets. One of them was a 90-pound black lab, was not going to fit in the truck.
You both were just a couple of the 1 million Floridians that were hitting the roads. I mean, highways turned into parking lots.
Yes, they did.
It was a mass exodus, and really, at the time, the largest peacetime evacuation that Florida has seen.
Like, I think the day before they started evacuating Miami. So we already had all of them blocking our roads, and everyone else is trying to join. We gave up on the highway pretty quickly because you just couldn't go anywhere. It was a parking lot. And everywhere we went, it was just a slow crawl to go anywhere.
Now, I did read, and I've spoken to folks where getting from Jack's Beach to the west side took 5 hours. Getting from Jacksonville to Tallahassee took 15 hours. Where did you guys decide to go? How long did it take? How far did you travel?
So our first plan was north. We gave up on that and decided northwest, somewhere in between, just away. About 11, 12 o'clock at night, we were too tired, we couldn't go any further. We pulled into a parking lot to spend the night. We had put over 100 miles on my car. And the next morning, Rick woke us up in the car and he's like, it's going north, we're fine, we're going home. Great. We were maybe 30 minutes from home. It was like 20 miles, 20, 25 miles from home. I just, from the beginning, thought it was ridiculous. You know, you saw the cars on the road with, you know, hauling the RV and hauling the boat and hauling all this other stuff. And I'm like, why don't you just get the car on the road, we can get 2 more people in that space and evacuate Florida faster.
At the end of it all, Floyd's impacts to Florida really were minimal.
Yes.
And obviously we look back and we think, oh wow, it could have been a lot worse. So would you do it again?
If it was another Floyd, if we were a little more confident that it was going to hit, I think we probably would.
We all learn something, you know, from each storm. And I think Floyd was a big lesson after the fact for a lot of folks. And you kind of have already mentioned some of them, but what are some other, you know, evacuation tips and tricks for folks who have not been through it?
I'd leave earlier. The lesson to take from Floyd is not, it didn't happen, we don't have to leave. It was, we lucked out. We need to be prepared to leave if it happens again.
Ask yourself this: do I live in an evacuation zone, a flood-prone area, a mobile home? Think about where you would go if a storm were approaching and how you would get there. Know that you don't have to travel hundreds of miles to get away from those impacts. And remember that the safest spot might actually be to stay in your home and off the roadways. For all you need to know all hurricane season long, hop on over to that First Coast News app in the Hurricane Central tab.
Well, it's Lewis and Clark in a hurricane special edition, and we're in Davis Shores, St. Johns County, St. Augustine. And for this segment of the hurricane special, you hear the meteorologist all the time when the storm is coming, evacuate, evacuate, get out. And maybe it becomes a bit of a white noise. Maybe you need to hear it from the people who have lived through it, experienced it, and would never stay through one again. And perhaps that's exactly what would happen in this neighborhood.
Davis Shores has flooded since Matthew and then every storm afterwards, and the water gets high.
The common story of heartbreaking flooding in Davis Shores. This one comes from a man who has a unique perspective.
My name's John Regan. I'm the city manager for the city of St. Augustine.
And why is this house special to you? What does this house mean to you in your life?
We lived here for 23 years, and this is where we raised our children.
He'd been through storms before. Hurricane Floyd in 1999 put a couple of inches of water in his home. But in 2016, Hurricane Matthew changed everything.
Hurricane Matthew, we had 3 feet of water in our home.
In the house.
Same for every home in the neighborhood.
So ourselves and our neighbors, you know, we experienced a flood level that was about this high. It's as if someone came in and just took everything and threw it upside down and covered it with mud.
So it was a mess inside that?
Oh, complete mess.
And on top of being St. Augustine's city manager, Regan is also an environmental civil engineer, helped in response to Hurricane Andrew in 1992. He knows through experience how to make a house resilient, the ability for it to bounce back after a flood.
This part of the house, you can come in like a Jeep and hose it out, disinfect it, and move on.
So if you want to live on this street, you essentially have to build a home that's like a Jeep Wrangler.
It helps. It certainly helps. Or maybe elevate the home.
You being the city manager, how did experiencing it for yourself impact the way you had to lead the city through storm recovery?
So I'm at the EOC knowing my home is damaged, destroyed. My wife is safe, my pets are safe. It definitely makes you become very empathetic because you're also a victim. And so I would never encourage anyone to live in a low-lying flood and be a city manager.
But his experience has led to some policy change. The city helping victims with both state and federal level grants to defend homes against flooding or even elevate the home. He says St. Augustine is helping 60 homeowners through the process right now after Ian and Nicole from the 2022 season. Keeping in mind, all the damage from Matthew, Ian, and Nicole was assessed at Category 1 level flooding. We haven't even seen the big one.
Not even close.
Not even close to the big one. Obviously, any flooding is catastrophic for a home. Easily could cost a homeowner hundreds of thousands of dollars, but storms bigger than those of seasons past, would there even be anything to return to?
The Cat 3 is, well, it's above the roof.
This house doesn't live through that.
It doesn't live, no. It is as a nuclear bomb goes off.
And part of his job is deciding when to evacuate residents. And if there's no other lesson from this story, think hard about his life experience from this street in St. Augustine.
On this street, we have friends. I'm not going to name them or point out where they lived, but they stayed in their home and they got freaked out because water was coming in their home. So they tried to go across the street to the neighbor who had a higher home for safety. And as they're crossing the street, the flood water, it comes in so fast, it's like a raging river. So they're holding on to their children, hoping that their children aren't swept away down the road. Now imagine a 4 or 5-year-old being swept in a storm down the road, right here in Davis Shores. And all you had to do was listen to the news and evacuate.
Because he says the dark side of all of this, giving people who tell him they won't evacuate some grim advice.
I can't talk you into evacuating, so do us a favor. Could you take a Sharpie and put your social security number on every arm, every leg, and your torso, so that if we have to come recover your body, just make it a little bit easier for us to identify you.
That's some fear of God.
Could you do that? Just put your social security all over your body. Get your ass out.
Did it change their minds?
Some. Many you don't.
So now, he says flooding of a few inches could cost a homeowner thousands of dollars, even if you have flood insurance.
On the average, we were out probably about $35,000 to $40,000 per flood.
Ouch.
Per flood.
It's your money.
Gone. Savings, gone.
So consider his mitigation plans for flood-prone homes now. More tile, less carpet, flood barriers like door dams, getting one-way valves on all sewer lines so sewage doesn't back up into your home. And no matter what, when the order to leave is given, leave. Lessons learned through experience, a luxury many don't have considering how fast this part of the First Coast is filling with new residents.
You know what I like that he said?
What?
It took a storm for me to learn that.
Right. And a lot of people don't have that luxury.
Learn from the people who've already experienced
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
the point of this story. All right.
Thanks, John.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate you doing this.
So let's think about what you'll need as you've gone through the storm. If you lose power, you are going to need 3 days of non-perishable food, water, medical supplies, at least 3 days worth for every member of your family. Have cash money on hand, have enough gas for your vehicle, and if you have a generator, that as well. And if you need any more of that information, we've got it condensed nicely for you. Remember, download the First Coast News app and check out the Hurricane Central tab.
We were just very hopeful, fingers crossed nothing will happen. Obviously that did not work.
I came and then the river was like angry.
Hurricane Matthew we had 3 feet of water in our home.
Did what we could to storm-proof a mobile home that may or may not even be there when we were done.
I lived at this address and Irma was the reason why it's not there no more.
It definitely makes you become very empathetic because you're also a victim.
We gave up on the highway pretty quickly because you just couldn't go anywhere. It was a parking lot.
It's depressing. I mean, there's no other word to describe it.
We haven't even seen the big one.
Not even close.
Not even close to the big one.
Getting from Jacksonville to Tallahassee took 15 hours.
You look out and it's just like almost a lake or the ocean.
Right.
The flood water, it comes in so fast, it's like a raging river.
About 11, 12 o'clock at night, we were too tired, we couldn't go any further. We pulled into a parking lot to spend the night.
We get our sandbags and our help. It's after the storm when all the damage is already done.
So they're holding on to their children, hoping that their children aren't swept away.
That's basically how we get through, is the love that we have for each other out here.
Could you take a Sharpie and put your social security number on every arm, every leg, and your torso, so that if we have to come recover your body, just make it a little bit easier for us?
Did it change their minds?
Some. Many you don't.
I'd leave earlier.
Pack up your stuff and get out of here.
And all you had to do was listen to the news and evacuate.
We lucked out. We need to be prepared to leave if it happens again.
That's the best thing that we could do.
You know what I like that he said?
What?
It took a storm for me to learn that.
Right. And a lot of people don't have that luxury.
We're gonna get hit. So the best thing for us to do is to, as soon as we know that the storm is on the way, is to get up and get out of here.
People are more resilient now than ever. It's a way to prepare for the future, even if we don't know exactly what the future holds. Hopefully, by acting on lessons learned, we will all be more resilient during this hurricane season. Different forecasts and numbers are going to come out, but here's the headline. The water is warmer. That means there is more energy, and it only takes one.
This has been a First Coast News special presentation from the First Coast's most accurate weather team, certified by WeatherRate 4 years in a row. Hurricane Ready 2023. It only takes one. Sponsored by AC Designs Heating and Air Conditioning, your home comfort experts. And by Universal Roof and Contracting. Experience the difference.